Essentialism is a disciplined, systematic approach for determining where our highest point of contribution lies and making execution of those things almost effortless. That's the essence of essentialism. It's not about just doing less to do less, it's about creating space for what matters most. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabbir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well-being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Welcome back, everyone. We're heading into fall and the later part of 2025. This has been a very full year for me, personally, professionally, with many challenges, excitements, and opportunities. I know I'm not alone. You probably feel the same way. You probably feel there's a combination of overwhelm, overstimulation, which is interrupted by those rare moments of clarity. So today I want to talk to you about essentialism. But before I dive deeper, I want to pause and truly thank you. Your support, your reviews, your comments have meant the world to me. We've explored so many different topics, especially perfectionism and its many facets. If you haven't heard those episodes, I truly invite you to go back and listen. Let's just dive in. In one of my coaching sessions with my own coach, I was sitting totally wrapped up in overwhelm. And of course, when you are on the other side, you can't see your blind spots. In one of my own coaching sessions with my coach, I was sitting on the other side of the table. And of course, when you're wrapped up in your own thoughts, you really can't see your blind spots. And my coach then pointed out what I was going through, the amount of overwhelm that I was going through. Then she pulls up this figure from this book by Greg McKeown called Essentialism. I found that reflection, just that graphic, so powerful that I chose to, of course, read the book cover to cover. And today's insights are based on that book on essentialism. I'll start us off with a quote from the book. The way of the essentialist means living by design, not by default. Instead of making choices reactively, the essentialist deliberately distinguishes the vital few from the trivial many, eliminates the non-essentials, and then removes obstacles so the essential things have clear, smooth passage. In other words, essentialism is a disciplined, systematic approach for determining where our highest point of contribution lies and making execution of those things almost effortless. That's the essence of essentialism. It's not about just doing less to do less. It's about creating space for what matters most. And that's where it collides with perfectionism, as you might have thinking when I'm not going to talk about perfectionism, because perfectionism tricks us into thinking everything matters and everything matters equally and everything has to be done flawlessly. And if we're not doing it all, we're failing. So I'm going to talk about this book in a couple of parts. The first part I want to focus on here is the power of choice. So in the book, Greg writes, when we forget our ability to choose, we learn to be helpless. Drip by drip, we allow our power to be taken away until we end up becoming a function of other people's choices, or even a function of our own past choices. In turn, we surrender our power to choose. That is the path of the non-essentialist. The essentialist doesn't just recognize the power of choice, he celebrates it. The essentialist knows that when we surrender our right to choose, we give others not just the power, but also the explicit permission to choose for us. How powerful is that? I want you to just sit with that for a second, because when I'm working with high achievers all the time, see that we forget our power to choose, and we're either stuck with narratives of other people's opinions, drip by drip, and also those past versions, these past goals, these past identities that we created for ourselves. So it makes us feel that we don't have any more options other than this expectation to say yes and to prove ourselves. But that truly is the path for burnout. And perfectionism also makes us forget our ability to choose. And essentialism reminds us that choice is the antidote, and we all have choice. So the first part, when we talk about essentialism, that my insights are grounded in is this reminder that we have choice, and choice is so powerful. And these days, because of the amount of overwhelm that we're going through, we often forget that. The second part I want to focus on is information overload versus opinion overload. In the book, Greg writes, today, technology has lowered the barrier for others to share their opinion about what we should be focusing on. It's not just information overload, it is opinion overload. Think about that. Opinion overload. One scroll through social media and suddenly you're rethinking your diet, your parenting, your career, your business, and then you have this internal yardstick of comparison, also so incredibly distracting. Perfectionism thrives on comparison. The essentialist approach is to ask yourself what truly matters to me. So when you're sitting there and you are suffering not only from this information overload, but from opinion overload, and all of a sudden you start reconsidering and rethinking every little choice that you've made, from professional to personal to those in your relationships, pause, stop. Okay. The third part that I want to focus on is reframing trade-offs. So in the book, he writes, essentialists see trade-offs as an inherent part of life, not as an inherently negative part of life. Instead of asking, why do I have to give up? They ask, why do I want to go? Essentialists see trade-offs as an inherent part of life, not as an inherently negative part of life. Instead of asking, what do I have to give up? They ask, what do I want to go big on? I love this shift because everything truly is a trade-off. At the end of the day, when you're saying yes to one thing, you are definitely saying no to another thing. When you are saying yes to a meeting that no longer aligns with your larger vision and goals, that means you're saying no to something else because you only have a finite amount of time. And really grounding yourself in this concept of finiteness or finitude. I'm probably saying this wrong, but when you think of that, you only have 24 hours in the day. You also have to sleep in that. You also have to rest in that, whatever is left over. So everything is a trade-off. And when you start thinking of it that way, you have to really slow down and ask yourself, instead of this constant thought, which is surrounded by people pleasing, you don't want to let anyone down, you can ask yourself, what is the trade-off here? If I choose one thing, I'll miss out on everything else. And this comes up really a lot also when I'm in speaking or workshops or in one-on-one settings with other high achievers, because it's really hard for high achievers to slow down their brain, slow down, and also realize that they have the power of choice, which pairs along with the trade-offs. And so the real breakthrough happens when you realize that it's not about loss, it's about intentionally choosing where to shine. Okay, so part 4 is rediscovering true priorities. The word priority came into the English language in the 1400s. It was singular. It meant the very first or prior thing. It stayed singular for the next 500 years. I love this quote. That history lesson, it really does blow my mind still. Only recently did we pluralize it to priorities, as if everything could be first. And that's how we feel, right? Everything has to be first. I feel that way with all the roles that I embody, whether it is in my roles as a mother, whether these are my professional roles, these are my other personal relational roles. Everything is a priority. What are your priorities? Perfectionism loves that lie. But when you think about the concept of essentialism, it brings us back to the truth, because only one thing can be first. Now, this can be a very disorienting concept to grapple with. But what I would invite you for this part of rediscovering priorities is to slow down and ask yourself, well, if there are 4 or 5 facets of my life right now, how many priorities do I have in each facet? For example, I'm running a business and entrepreneurship has its own priorities, and I have multiple priorities over there. But then also I have priorities where my personal life comes in, where motherhood comes in. So at the same time, you don't need to have multiple priorities in each bucket. At least we can start by asking ourselves, like, okay, for motherhood, what is my top priority? In entrepreneurship, what is my top priority right now? The one priority. So instead of moving a couple of millimeters in each direction, you can truly gain traction and momentum and head towards one direction. So what are those priorities? And essentialism brings us down and grounds us in recognizing that if we truly want to create impact and reimagine success for ourselves, you want to go ahead and start shedding off some of those priorities that you feel that need to be there. Okay, so I'm now going to go to part 5, in which I talk about perfectionism versus essentialism specifically. So Greg McKeown, via Peter Kang's reflections, shares in the book, when people make their problem our problem, we aren't helping them. we're enabling them. As a perfectionist, I've been there, thinking that I can save everybody, fix every situation. But I learned the hard way that when we absorb other people's problems, it really distracts us from our own essential path. It also enables that similar behavior in other humans, that we think that they're not maybe capable of this, which our perfectionistic striving is making us feel that we can do this better than them. We are the only ones who can do this perfectly. Nobody else can do that, and really struggle to delegate in that moment. And so this is where perfectionism and essentialism diverge, where perfectionism says you're only valuable if you're solving everything for everyone. Essentialism says you're valuable when you focus on your highest contribution. And maybe in that moment, the highest contribution that you can offer someone is delegation. So I hope you found this really helpful, at least in opening some of your thought processes with overwhelm and with all the things you think that you should be doing. So as we close this episode, I want to leave you with 3 steps that you can implement starting now, and you can just start taking these steps right now with me. So the first step is to notice where perfectionism is making choices for you, whether it's overcommitting, people-pleasing, overfixing, overthinking. Just notice. Just step away and observe yourself. The second step is to name your one priority this season, not just priorities for the rest of 2025. What is your one priority for the rest of the year? Just one. And if this is really hard, I challenge you to just start with, okay, well, this is my one priority in my personal life, in my role as a mother, or in my role as a caregiver, or in my role as a partner, or in my role, whatever role you want to pick. One priority, not 10 priorities. And then finally, narrow your focus. Narrow your focus further. Decide where you want to go big and release the rest. Release the rest. Go and delete the rest of that to-do list. Is everything on that list essential? Is everything on that list a priority? I challenge you to think further and release some of those things. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is just delete that to-do list. Okay. I would love to hear from you. What came up for you as you listened to this episode? What came up for you as you listened to some of these past episodes on perfectionism? Comment on Spotify or on YouTube, and let's keep this conversation going. Essentialism is not about living small. It's about living by design, not by default. You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabbir.com, where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving.